Is the BRRRR strategy even possible? Is it still a thing in 2023 for Canadian real estate investors? Well, in this video, I want to tell you guys the 5 things you need to know about the BRRRR strategy in order to make it effective as a Canadian real estate investor. What's going on, everybody? My name is Andrew, and today I want to talk to you guys about the BRRRR strategy. Now, in my day, when we were talking about the BRRRR strategy, it wasn't really called the BRRRR strategy or the BRRRR method or anything like that. It was called thinking and being creative as a real estate investor. But when people employ the BRRRR strategy, they find out very quickly that there are a few things that don't seem to work with the BRRRR strategy. Like sometimes the refinance ends up being the hardest part. So I'm going to quickly talk about the BRRRR strategy, things you need to know about it, and then I'm going to tell you guys at the end how it's going to be effective for you and how you can make this work for you under any circumstance. So let's get into it. Buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and then repeat. Buy basically means you have to find a property that has some room for growth, a property that you can breathe some life into and add value so that you have the potential to refinance down the road. The renovation means that you have to have the budget in place in order to breathe that life into the property, in order to realize the value add that you see at this property, whether it's increasing the rents, whether it's adding extra square footage, whether it's finishing or rehabbing any type of outdated or old or just in poor condition cosmetic areas of the property. The third letter stands for renting it out. Renting it out is assuming that we are buying property that you can rent out, which means that single family home properties are not really the greatest property to BRRRR. Even duplex today in 2023 for Canadian real estate investors, this isn't the best factor to be leaning on, because when you're trying to add value, not everybody's going to see enough value in the property that just has 2 units. So ideally, you're working on properties, especially under today's conditions, that have 3, maybe 4 units, and these are properties that are worthwhile to employ the BRRRR strategy on. Which brings us, of course, to the fourth part, which is refinancing. And this is the part where most people seem to falter because they didn't really line all their ducks up properly, and they find themselves in a position where they're unable to qualify. Why does this happen? Well, what happens oftentimes is people buy these properties which don't get appraised at the price that they were hoping for. And this happens when people bought at too high a price, or the market is going through a bit of a downturn now and they're not able to pull their money back out. And what do? They raise money from all kinds of investors, and then they bought these properties and they're locked in for a period of time. And these things happen, but they have to make sure to have a bit of an exit strategy or be able to produce an income somewhere else. But for most people, refinancing and qualifying for the property is a challenge. It's not always just on the appraised value. Oftentimes it can be because of the income. Now you need to bring in other people into the equation in order to qualify for that mortgage, or there's just not enough equity in general, or the rents aren't strong enough, or something else happened. But refinancing poses the biggest challenge, and it's not as easy as people think. Mortgage companies are getting tighter on their qualification criteria, and it's not as easy to get a mortgage and qualify or get the appraised value of a property that you want. Which now brings us to the 5th step, which is repeat. And the repeating part ends up becoming a little more challenging as well. If you are working on properties that are pretty much going to offset your income by producing a lot of income, then you're going to be in the clear. However, repeating this process becomes more and more challenging unless real estate investors scale out and go further away from the cities that they are currently investing. Like you may have bought in Toronto, and then you may buy in Oakville, and then you may buy in Hamilton, and then you're buying in St. Catharines, but you don't continually buy in Toronto because you won't be able to buy performance properties that are going to continue your growth trajectory the way that your other properties have in the past. Which is why I want to tell you the secret sauce to the BRRRR method in 2023, which is something that we have been following for a long time now, which is the 1% rule, which means that if you have a property that's producing $5,000 a month, this property can only be worth $500,000. But now you might say, oh, Andrew, how you ever, even back then, possibly going to find a property that is going to meet this 1% rule? It's ridiculous. And the truth is that, yes, it is ridiculous. You couldn't find it then, you couldn't find it now, but I'll tell you a secret, you can build it. You can find properties that aren't necessarily going to meet the 1% rule, but they can meet the 1% rule if you work them properly. And these are the properties where the BRRRR method is very strong and very powerful. The takeaway I want you guys to have here is that the BRRRR method is still possible in 2023 as long as you combine it with the 1% rule, meaning that you have to find properties that you can improve their performance and you can improve what they generate in terms of income. You can do this with student rental, you can do this with multifamily, you can do this with any property, especially today where they're allowing people in Ontario across most cities to build up to 4 units in their properties. We're talking garden suites, we're talking about second suites, we're talking about attic apartments. There's all kinds of ways to improve densification, at least a little bit if you're buying single family homes. So if you go through this process, there's a lot of opportunity in the BRRRR method and you ought to employ it, but follow the 1% rule if possible. you want to know more about this, make sure to check out our other videos. I'm going to leave some links about it somewhere here. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.